What's going on, everybody? It's Travis here with the NPCs, and welcome to another weekly news roundup. It is February 3rd, 2023, and tonight we will be talking about multiple games being delayed, shut down, or canceled. What is going on this week with games right now? We'll also, of course, be talking about Microsoft may or may not be shutting down the Xbox 360 marketplace. And of course, we'll also be talking about 343 Industries starting over with Halo and possibly taking the game into Unreal Engine 5. That and more on the NPCs Weekly News Roundup. So let's just hop right into it. My name is Travis, of course, and via Discord, the guy hiding over there behind me a little bit. Oh, there he is, right in frame now. It's Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
How's it going?
Dude, it is going weird. Like I don't even know like why everything is so weird right now. I think we just need to hop into it because there's so much happening. And that is honestly the amount of news we've gotten over just the last few days alone about multiple games having been delayed, shut down, or canceled. And I have a small list going here, and I'm
hmm
curious to know which ones you're surprised about here. If anything, I'm going to read these ones off. But Back for Blood is being shut down, more specifically, the mainline support for it as Turtle Rock moves on to their next AAA title. We have Titanfall Apex Legends crossover. Apparently, it was supposed to be set in the Apex Legends world, but was supposed to be a follow up to Titanfall 2. It was supposed to be a single player game. That just completely got shelved. Last of Us Part 1 on PC has been delayed until the end of March, beginning of April, after the HBO Max series ends its first season. Star Wars Jedi Survivor got pushed out by 6 weeks into April. Apex Legends Mobile is going to be sunsetting, and Battlefield Mobile isn't even going to make its way into the world. We've got Crossfire X, which was a Xbox exclusive, kind of like indie-ish title going away. Apparently, some new titles from the Coalition are going away, so they can focus on Gears 6 instead. And then PlayStation Plus Collection is also going to be going away too, which PlayStation Plus Collection was the PS4 titles that those on PS5 could actually get for a certain period of time. That's going away some point this year too. Kyle, what is happening? What is going
Um,
on?
I feel like each of these has their own story, and like you said, there's some we didn't even touch on. Like we were talking pre-show about Rumbleverse is getting shut down. Neither of
Oh
us has
yeah,
necessarily played it, but um, that one only got launched back in August of last year, so
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that hasn't even have had that long of a life. Of course, there have already been other ones that have been announced earlier on, uh, what in December, November that were getting shut down. But now we look at these titles that we have right here. Uh, Back for Blood. I think that one's not necessarily surprising. The fan reception wasn't all that great on that one. And maybe it was just bad timing and there too much time in between doing Left for Dead and putting out the Back for Blood. Uh
Yeah, no
I'll
kidding.
get back to Titanfall. Last of Us, I can maybe understand Sony wanting to potentially bank on the outcome of the HBO series, especially since, after what was it, episode 2, it was announced that season 2 has already been in or is in development now, and
Correct.
uh they're going to be covering the second game in season 2. So, um Jedi Survivor, that one, I think it's more of a polish thing than anything else. They probably have some kinks and minor issues, but that one's actually only a 6-week delay from what I understand. So that
Yeah,
one's
that's only
not
six
super
weeks.
terrible. Yeah, and you look at that. I mean, when you look at the level of polish with the first game, um, it was, just excellent, and it had so much content, and it was, just that sweet level between a Dark Souls style game and like being a Jedi and having all the power, but not necessarily quite there because, you had to have challenge with the Sith. Um, and
True.
I think this game deserves that. So I'm not saying that that one's necessarily a bad thing. Um, it's kind of sad to see Apex Legends Mobile go. I felt like that one was actually kind of successful. Um, Especially you look at the mobile market in foreign countries. Apex was one that's driven not only console but mobile, and I think maybe that was potentially also victim of the Battlefield being canceled, and that's just fallout from the current Battlefield. I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of them so far that I've talked about?
Well, here's what I want to like. Here's what they talk about. Like, I think the big part of it this week was just the surprise announcement that Apex Legends Mobile was going to be shut down. Here's what we actually have here in our notes from Axios is apparently EA CEO Andrew Wilson instead indicated in a call to investors that Apex Legend Mobile's biggest problem was that it didn't feel deeply connected to the broader franchise, which I call a little bit of shenanigans on because it basically is like it's definitely monetized in the sense of like what a mobile game would be. Like you go in and look at the game, like especially when it comes up, you get like 3 advertisements for things you can buy or a link to go visit the in-game store to go spend credits or other in-game currency to go do stuff before you even get to the screen to start a match up. So it follows the same scheme of like regular mobile pay-to-win games. But
Right.
they go on here to say players of a mobile version of a big series want to either compete against their PC console counterparts or at least feel like progressing in one version of the game benefits them in the other. And that again came from the CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson. And apparently, um, yeah, that Battlefield Mobile was set to actually run the same way, and they even make a good point in this Axios article here too. And that's one of those things that I also see as well, is that if you're going to develop a mobile title for your game, like let's just say like we had a Halo mobile, let's just say we had a Gears of War mobile, let's just say we had anything
Right.
Assassin's Creed mobile because we've got that Assassin's Creed game coming out sometime here soon
Hmm.
too. The fact that there's a lot of cross-platform games that exist out there anyway, and that people are playing games on mobile and then moving towards console or PC, especially when they're settled in nice and neat at home. They want to be able to continue playing the game just as they had, or be able to bring those unlocks over that they have from a version of the game elsewhere, especially mobile. And one of the games that happens to do that, one for one, is Genshin Impact. The same game you play on
Right.
mobile is the same game you play on PC. And so all of the things you earn while you're just out and about on the go carry over and you just pick up right where you left off on your computer. Um, that's not to say, of course, like for the example with Steam Deck with their new cloud save functionality, I know they gave it a different term for cloud saves with the Steam Deck. I can't remember what the name of it was. But you know what I'm talking about, though, that you could play a game
Right.
on your Steam Deck, and as soon as you go to lock it, the game saves itself. As long as it's connected to Wi-Fi, will save itself to the cloud, and then you bring that game up on your computer. You should be able to pull that save in with relative ease.
But
So,
even then, there are still some limitations.
oh,
So,
I agree. I agree. There are things that aren't going to carry over all the way, but the idea, though,
mhm.
still stands that you want the experience to be near seamless. And especially
Right.
for something as big as Apex Legends, where there's a lot to unlock and carry over, do you really want to play a game where you start over on like different things? Like, especially if you've got a bunch of unlocks
No.
on the PC game or on the console game, do you want to have to start over to get those unlocks in
I
the
mean,
mobile?
I could understand, having separate battle passes for each of the different types because I personally on if I'm playing on mobile do not want to play against a PC player even if I'm using a controller because you just don't have the same advantage. And a lot of times if you're caught trying to use a mouse and keyboard on a mobile game like Apex or Call of Duty Mobile, you get banned anyway. So the playing field's not level. Um, but beyond that, I mean, I feel like yeah, all the unlocks should be seamless, even if it is a different battlefield. There's no reason they shouldn't be. It's the same characters. It's technically the same game. Um, Besides, like I said, potentially being a different battlefield, or battleground that you're on, um, albeit maybe a little bit smaller. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was on mobile or not. I
No, it
can't
was the
remember. It's
same. It
been
was
so
the
long.
same. It was
So,
one for one.
oh, so that and that makes it even more so why there shouldn't
I
be
think
any reason.
the bigger difference with the mobile side of it, though, more specifically, was the that they rotated in older maps that you didn't get to see rotated in as often on the PC version. That was one of the big selling points
Oh,
of the game to bring people in, was that you not only could take Apex with you on the go, but that you got to play on more of those on more of the maps that already exist instead of waiting on them to re-enter some sort of rotational pool or come back from the vault or whatever you want to call it in the regular
right.
release of the game. But so even so on that, I guess what I'm more curious about than anything, like that I'm more surprised about actually kind of jumping here on the list. Like
Hmm.
I'll admit I had never heard of Crossfire X. That's probably my bad, just not hearing about that
It
one.
was an
But
interesting one.
it was that the coalition was working on two other titles, and it didn't exactly indicate what those titles were going to be, other than it was that they were working on some sort of new IP, and that they were apparently they actually helped Epic Games work on, and this is from the Video Games Chronicle article we're referencing. It says the Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 tech demo. So the coalition actually
Right.
had their hands in helping with some of that, which is kind of crazy. But the fact, though, they were hit by the layoffs. The coalition was when Microsoft announced all of their layoffs. But the fact, though, that they've now basically pushed everybody in from this one from these three separate games into just now focusing on Gears 6, whatever that's going to be. And I, I was a little surprised. Now I'm even more curious to know what they could have potentially been working on. Like, were they going to finally just shift away from stuff in the Gears franchise? Were they going to develop something else newer, or were they going to support other teams out there?
Yeah, that's one I was really curious about. Because they haven't put out a Gears game in a few years, and I want to say here, what was it, like 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, even the Gears Pop game on mobile was completely shut down. So the
I forgot
what
about
we
that one.
have
Yeah.
for yeah, what we have for Gears is, I mean, Gears 5 and all the previous iterations, that had launched before, and not even, if I'm not mistaken, not all of them are available on PC. So
Mm-mm.
there's a lot to be said there. It makes me wonder if maybe there was some sort of, PC port in development, or an iteration of some of the ones that aren't on PC to be ported and put out, but maybe they won't see the light of day because of these cancellations from the games from the coalition, which is sad. But on the other hand, um, I really do like the Gears of War games, and I'd like to see the next one come out. So if they could buckle down and put out another quality Gears game, then I would be happy.
Yeah. I would be curious I'm still just genuinely curious, though, to know what else they may have worked on, though. Um,
Hmm.
because the idea, though, that they helped with that Matrix tech demo for Unreal Engine 5 is pretty slick, especially because of how in depth that
Right.
demo was and the level of detail that Epic actually showed off within that engine itself.
Well, and when you consider some of the stuff that has been recently uncovered, and this is more specifically targeting Nintendo, by Did You Know Gaming, um,
Right.
that maybe they had other titles completely in the works, just from that tech demo, because they got unleashed on that one thing, and they were like, oh well, see what kind of projects you can come up with it, you know outside of the tech demo. And all of a sudden those are getting shut down because maybe we could have seen a new Matrix online game. Maybe we
Oh,
could have
yeah.
seen a new Path of Neo game that would have been really cool. But who's to say now, because it's completely gone.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that demo anyway was built out to just kind of coincide with the fourth Matrix movie there. So,
Right.
needless to say, it was still a good one to at least use as an example. Um, And then another interesting one here in our list, though, I know it's not a game, but it's a collection of games, and that's the PlayStation Plus collection. Again, so when the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, um, this was a set made available to those who had PlayStation Plus subscriptions. And so those games included things such as Bloodborne, Days Gone, Detroit Become Human, God of War, Infamous Second Son, Ratchet and Clank, The Last Guardian, Last of Us Remastered, Until Dawn, Uncharted 4. And then, those are all first party PlayStation titles. Third party stuff was like Batman Arkham Knight, Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, Fallout 4, Final Fantasy 15, Monster Hunter World, Mortal Kombat 10, and Resident Evil 7. Now,
That's an excellent game collection just to start out. I mean, if you didn't have anything to play and didn't want to buy a game right away, you could sit for an entire year on just those games alone.
yeah, no kidding, especially because you've definitely got more games that are definitely like single player games on here, but you have
Mhm.
a couple at least that could be considered multiplayer, and at least a few of them here. So at least it gave you a nice variety of things to at least play on there. Now, of course, we're entering the third year of the PlayStation 5 anyway, and now this is one of those that's going to be going away. Now, the interesting question, though, is whether or not you have these games downloaded, if it's going to act similar to Game Pass, where when they sunset stuff off of just Game Pass for the time being, does the game stay installed on your machine, but you just can't play it anymore? Does it have some
And
sort of authentication against it to allow you to keep playing it if it,
it
you know,
it sounds like that won't be the case. When they sunset the PlayStation Plus collection, it will disable it in your system, from what I understand.
oh,
Now
wait,
I
I
may not
found
be
it.
100. Huh? What's up?
Oh, hmm. Oh, hold on a minute.
Uh,
I think hold on.
oh,
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I thought the stream just kind of went all belly up here. Sorry.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we're cool. We're still live here. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So the uh link here, actually, the stuff with IGN actually says it right in the first paragraph. It says, however, members can still redeem the titles from the collection until that date, which is May 9th, and
Oh,
then
wow.
continue to access them afterward as long as they remain subscribers to the service. So as long as you download all those to your machine and remain a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you'll still be authenticated to be able to play those.
Nice. Well, but and here's the other side that I was gonna say though. Um, Even though that they are sunsetting the project, you also have to consider the fact that they're raising the cost of the console in all countries except for the United States by $50. And really and truly, when you think about it, they're doing it in the United States too. They're just giving you a download code for a game. So it's coming. Things are gonna get, a little bit tighter on Sony's end just to buckle down because they are generating more users on their end that have PlayStation 5s, and they don't necessarily need to rely on this crutch to to hold those users down and to hold them on the console. They have their own library that's substantial now, so they don't need the backup library of games just for those users that do
Agreed.
subscribe to play. So
Yeah. I guess
I think we're far enough along.
true. But I guess circling around at least here on that first one in the list, Back for Blood, that game has now been out since October 2021 and has
Hmm.
had uh three content packs released for it. This last one dropped actually in December, and Turtle Rock came out and said that that is the last one that they're doing, and that they are not saying that Back for Blood is dead per se, but because of Turtle Rock being the size that it is, they have to basically shift all of their focus over to whatever new title that they're working on, which they say is what they are, what they're doing. They're still going to support Back for Blood, but we're not going to see anything content wise. I assume we're going to see more like quality of life improvements, patches, fixes, and things like that for a certain period of time. But the majority of work that Turtle Rock's going to be doing now is on their next title. So
See, and
that's
the one
one
thing I
thing.
will say that this is awful reminiscent of from Turtle Rock is Evolve.
Yeah, but didn't Evolve didn't really have much um going for it. Like it started off strong, but then it really went by the wayside where it seems like Back for Blood has actually kind of held its position rather well compared to that game.
Well, and it did get just like Back for Blood, because of some of the gameplay aspects, it got a lot of negative player feedback, especially early on, about wait times to play as the monster, and
Oh
the
yeah, huh?
fact that once the season passes came out, it was an egregious amount of money to pick up one uh, different specific monster, but then after a while, they were basically giving them all away for free. Um, and I think it wasn't even too long after that that they actually shut down the server. So it kind of makes me fearful for what Back for Blood has coming, but I don't know. Like I said, it did have negative fan feedback, because I think a lot of people were expecting more of a Left 4 Dead, and it was just too much or too little, too late.
Maybe. But even so, like with Back for Blood, with everything they put out with it, we played, I would say, quite a bit. I don't think we didn't check out any of the newer content added to it, but it was definitely enjoyable. I think it was actually a pretty
I
good
thought
experience
so.
for it. There were a few things there that, it's like I think we kind of jumped into it with the expectation of kind of like going into like Left 4 Dead 3 almost, but of
Hmm.
course it had its own unique take on it though. And I would say, we put quite a bit of time into it, at least at the initial run. But one article I did read about all of that shutdown stuff, though, especially like with Back for Blood, really more than anything, is that not every game has to be a Fortnite. Not every game has to be something that just continues on forever and
This is
ever, especially
true.
something like that. And at some point in time, Back for Blood's going to be, it's going to have its online component shut down. We're going to see that part of it sunset completely, and support will completely go away. But until that time, I mean, at least there's still a game you can get into with people and play. I mean, maybe they won't sunset the servers and it'll be just like Left 4 Dead, where you can just hop on whenever you want and play it. When that game came out in 2007, there's still a lot of
Right.
people who want to play things like that. So maybe there could be something there too. But until that happens, at least, we have to just wait and see. But
Now,
yeah.
the one that I saved for last,
Oh yeah, talk about it.
uh, the Titanfall Apex Legends
Dear
crossover.
God, that one hurt.
Ah, man, that was like seriously gut wrenching. Someone stabbed me in the chest. Why did they even have to mention that there was a game coming out? They
Yes.
should have not even said anything and just silently let it go away with a whimper, Because mentioning it, I think this might ignite flames for fans.
Yeah, so here's what it said here in the article from Kotaku about it. It says the game would have taken place in a shared universe between Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends. Two acclaimed Respawn Entertainment shooters with lots of similarities that have seen plenty of fan speculation about overlapping lore in the past. Unlike the popular free to play Battle Royale, however, it was apparently planned as a single player campaign. So the game was actually supposed to be called Titanfall Legends. That was how they were going to be kind of doing the cross here. The article goes on to say, unfortunately, Bloomberg reports that the team of about 50 developers who were working on it were informed on Tuesday that the project had been cut. While the company would look for other positions to move the impacted staff to, anyone without a new position would be laid off. So, man, Titanfall, just Respawn really got its ass handed to it in a manner of speaking, just because not only was Jedi Survivor delayed, which is being made by Respawn, but you
Hmm.
also had whatever support they were probably providing on Battlefield Mobile as well too, which I'm sure they probably were, because Respawn seems to be helping out a lot around there. You've got um, Apex Legends Mobile, of course. That's just another one going down. It's interesting, and I have one thing though to bring up to you, Kyle.
Hmm.
Before you carry on, with your misery and woe that is not getting another Titanfall single player game, because I'm right there with you. I was having a conversation with my kid yesterday,
Hmm.
and he was going on to show me that some of the new skins, some of these new like high level skins in Apex Legends, are actually Titan pilot suits for all of the different characters. And they're
Really?
all they're all, like in the style of, like, I guess what you'd expect to see maybe for the character if they were a pilot, for example. The only one that stands out looking more like a regular pilot suit is Bangalore. I guess you go through like a tiered system to actually unlock everything. But by the end of it, with the helmet and the actual jumpsuit and everything there, she looks like a Titan pilot. And
Oh wow.
a lot of the characters are getting those too. Not all of them, I don't think, but a good chunk of them are. And so it just leads me to believe that maybe it is true that it's like, if this is actually the case that Titanfall Legends was happening, what if we were starting to see some of that kind of culminate into what that crossover could have been? Not only with that, but there was the rumor of a character that you could play as that actually had a Titan as a ultimate ability. There were, obviously, of course, they brought in Ash, who died in Titanfall 2, and made her a part of the storyline as well in the campaign, or not the campaign, but in the actual game itself in Apex. Just a lot of stuff, especially, has happened, and so
Right.
yeah, man. But anyway,
That's just the gut wrencher, because yeah, I've been on a podium for Titanfall 2 ever since it launched, and we've had our woes, especially in the last probably 8 months, trying to play multiplayer and having no success on
yeah,
PC, and it's awful because the game is great. Even just the harvester defense mode, it's like a really chill 4-player 20-minute match. If you just have 20 minutes to kill, it's just fun. And not only that, the single player story for the game is excellent, and
mm-hmm.
I've been dying, literally dying for another Titanfall story, considering the first game was a multiplayer game only. So please stop this and give us a new Titanfall game.
No kidding. That's all I wish for too. Is like I would love a new Titanfall game, but I just don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. It seems like maybe not. I don't know. Man. Well, that's at least it in the larger list of things that are going on. I mean, we're used to cancellations, we're used to delays on things like that, but it seemed like there were a couple things here, especially in the news, that just hit hard that they all had to be summed up in just the first one going into this week.
Hmm.
So Jesus Christ. But let's take that woe and move it into something else, Kyle, because I think this will make us even feel older though too. And that is that Microsoft may or may not be shutting down the Xbox 360 marketplace. So this was actually posted just yesterday. So apparently, there was a list that went up that said these games are going to be getting removed from the Xbox 360 marketplace. However, Wario64 posted a image on his Twitter stating, and this was directly from them. I'll switch over to the capture here for this one. This is actually a screenshot from the Xbox support page that says Xbox 360 Marketplace update. We'll be closing the Xbox 360 Marketplace over the next year, so we encourage you to purchase any 360 games or DLC by May 2023. So that's May of this year. And of course, the list of content that they were going to be removing was going to be, I think, like Orange Box was one of them. I think even like the standalone Left 4 Dead was another one. I mean, there were a few other like choice titles that I can remember being like the big ones back from when we were, playing 360 like mainstream, like as the
Right.
console to be on. But let's see here. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, they actually did update it here. Let me see if I can get the list here of what's actually being removed from ours. Yeah, so here's the games that are being removed really quick, Kyle. I'll read off the titles here for you. Aegis Wings, Assassin's Creed, Brotherhood 3, 4, and Liberation HD, Blood of the Werewolf, Blue Dragon, Breakdawn, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare and Ghosts, Castle Crashers, wow, that's a shock, Cloning Clyde, Counter-Strike Go, Dark Souls, Darksiders 2, Daytona USA, Defense Grid, Eats Chowdown, Far Cry 2, Final Fight, DBL Impact, Iron Brigade, Jerry McGrath's Off Road, Jet Set Radio, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, Limbo, Lost Odyssey, Mass Effect 2, Monopoly Deal, Mutant Blobs Attack, N+, Outpost, Kaloki X, Peggle 2, Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds, Prince of Persia, Ruse, Sega Vintage Collection, Alex Kidd & Co., Skate 2, South Park Stick of Truth, Spelunky, Splinter Cell Conviction, Star Wars Battlefront, Star Wars KOTOR 2, The Orange Box, The Raven Episode 1, and The Witcher 2. But that was what
Huh.
literally I think that they gaffed on, is that they were going to do it. However, they came back later and said the message was posted in error. We can confirm the Xbox 360 marketplace will not close in May of 2023. As a reminder, beginning on February 7th, 2023, a limited set of games, add-ons, and in-game content will no longer be purchasable in select markets via the Xbox 360 store. That's via a Microsoft spokesperson. Kyle, we I can say personally that, like, after the PlayStation 2, the Xbox 360 was my next console. That was what happened. I got one
Uh-huh.
used from a friend, and unfortunately it was one of the ones that was susceptible to the red ring of death, and it did finally red ring on me. That was not
Right.
fun. But the key thing, though, is that, like, I mean, Xbox 360 has been going on since what, 2005, 2004,
Um,
maybe
shoot,
2005.
I think it's like two. Yeah, I think it's a 2005.
But
That
like,
sounds about right. Maybe it was a little bit later than that. Maybe it was like 2008.
well,
Um,
because well, that would make sense because the Xbox One came out in 2013. So they wouldn't have had 5 years just on the
oh
Xbox.
yeah.
It probably had to be '05. Um, but needless to say,
Yep,
even
it was '05
okay,
actually.
glad that burned in my
November
head.
22nd of '05. So
Got
I
it.
was mistaken. Yeah, much
Yay!
earlier.
All right, cool. I know my dates then, at least on this. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, it's been out that long, and for the fact that it's like it's been supported as long as it has been is kind of cool. But obviously things have to give. But I still find it a shock, especially though. Like, games obviously need to be sunset off of marketplaces anyway, though, too, over time, just because of,
Mhm.
you only have so many people playing a console. Like, I can't remember the last time I actually touched an Xbox 360. Um, but like, what's your take on like that gaff though? Do you think that was just more of a, like, not even just an error, but someone kind of just jumped the gun to say that this was going to be happening, or
I think it
what?
was the person that got the message that they were supposed to make the post, misunderstood it or misread it, or maybe they were mistold the information
Right.
potentially. And yeah, to make that major of a gaffe, I think that's what potentially had happened, and that's why we were seeing the panic buying and everything because, yeah, it was just interpreted completely wrong.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
especially when you hear some of the names of those games, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Like that shouldn't happen. That's like the sunset of a console entirely when you hear those titles. Left for Dead, Left for Dead 2, Castle Crashers,
That one hurts.
games, yeah, games that like people immediately want to get on and play on that console. When those are getting taken off, the console is officially dead.
Yeah, like they're like, especially reading that Castle Crashers and N Plus were on there. That kind of hurt me a little bit because as soon as as I'm reading it off to you, I was picturing it in my head at the same time.
Hmm.
Was having my MP3 player plugged into my Xbox 360 and being able to use the in console like music player to actually
Oh
have
yeah.
music going at the same time as I'm playing through these other games. Like, the
Right.
the fact that it's like my music, like even like Geometry Wars is a good example, is that my music would overwrite Geometry Wars music and that I would listen to what I normally listen to, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't I wouldn't hear the music from like in the game. I just listened to my music that I wanted to actually hear. And it was nice because then I go to a friend's house, I'd plug into their Xbox 360 with it, and we could have the same music going for something else too. Just
Right.
kind of having that all in one experience. So by seeing N plus and Castle Crashers on there, it really threw me off. Like, I was not
Hmm.
expecting those to be there at all. But you're right though that, like, having those games off there kind of like hits it hard, but at the same time we're also talking about a console that's what, 10, 15, 18 years old now?
Yeah, this is also true. And I mean, a lot of these titles aren't even being downloaded any longer necessarily on the 360s. A lot of people
Right.
that are playing on 360s continuously now are more so your people that are playing. the single player console games, I feel like they're not
Yeah.
necessarily going out and downloading new titles, or going out of their way to, unless, they're just rounding out the end of their collection type thing.
Yeah, like I can't imagine many people are booting up an Xbox to play a multiplayer game unless maybe they're having a LAN party for like nostalgia's sake, getting all the Xboxes together to just play something locally. Um,
Right.
I can't imagine that though, actually happening. But at the same time, yeah, I really do agree though that you're probably right that it is for a lot of those single player titles that you can't experience elsewhere. I mean, I know there's backwards compatibility in the Xbox One and the Xbox Series S or X, excuse me, just because that has the disc drive. But
Hmm.
maybe sometimes there is that case though where it's like you need that unique experience playing on the original console to do that, just like you would like it plugging a cartridge into a Super Nintendo. Same
Right.
thing applies. You can play it on an emulator, but there's something different when you're actually playing on an original console.
Right.
So, um, I guess with that though, Kyle, like, do you think maybe we'll see this announcement potentially come back up again this time instead? That maybe May is the exact date that we're going to start seeing it, but they'll decide to announce like maybe in March. Like they'll come back around in another month and a half and say, "Oh yeah, just kidding. We were serious. You guys have till May of to do this. Then we're going to shutter the marketplace."
I mean, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that someone or a company has done something like this to gauge the reaction and to gauge the outcry, for how long after the effect, or after the announcement type thing, to see what, they can make plans for. Oh well, there was a lot of, outcry for the 360 to stay open, over the course of 2 weeks. So maybe we should just leave it open for an entire year and let people download stuff. Or, we haven't really heard a lot, on our side. So perhaps it is time to actually make that call in May and start sunsetting the services.
Yeah, because I think if marketplace goes away, I mean, I can't imagine you can pay for Xbox Live on an Xbox 360 much anymore. So, especially with a lot of things rolling into Game Pass and Game Pass
Right.
Ultimate, but I don't know. I just it's gonna happen no matter what. I don't know. Part
Hmm.
of me is just like I look at this picture of the 360 and the article itself, and just it makes me think back to a lot of those things there with the marketplace, especially, or even just being able to just playing games on it though too. So I don't know, just a
Right.
wave of nostalgia for it. But um, yeah, needless to say, as of right now, at least that date is an error, but it's very possible that we could see. Who knows? Maybe like we were just saying there, maybe they'll come back in March or April and just say, "Haha, just kidding." You know, I guess again, just like always, we'll wait and see. In the meantime, though, let's move on here to our next story on the list, and that is about Sony and the PSVR 2. God, we're just delivering bad news all day today. Um,
Yep.
so apparently there was a story that came out of Bloomberg that said um, that Sony had cut or reduced its production order for PSVR 2 headsets based on the amount of pre-orders that had already been done for the nearly $600 headset. However, Sony has come back and refuted that claim, saying that they have not cut the PlayStation VR 2 production numbers and saying that it is seeing enthusiasm from PlayStation fans for the upcoming launch, which includes more than 30 titles such as Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Call of the Mountain, and Resident Evil Village. So I guess they were dropping it to from about 2 million to anywhere from 1 to 1.5 million is what they had there in their production run. But that still brings back the question that we've talked about anyway, Kyle, even with this.
Hmm.
Or even going back on this, is that the PlayStation VR 2 is going to cost more than the console that you need to use to support it. It doesn't have backwards compatibility with original PSVR titles. You're going to have to buy those all over again if they get remade. Just like
Right.
Beat Saber, for example, is getting remade. And then you can't use it on anything else except the PlayStation 5. Like, are we going to finally see Sony just cave on this and finally open up and say, yeah, we're going to offer PC support for it, at some point in time? Or are they really expecting people who just went and spent $500 for a console to go spend $600 more for a VR headset?
The idea of them to do that would be awful nice, but I feel like this is Sony. It's a peripheral, or another system that doesn't I mean, it supports their mainline system, but it doesn't stand on its own. So Sony isn't going to support it either. And that's what I'm really truly afraid of. I mean, you saw it with the PSP, you saw it with the Vita, you saw it with the PlayStation, uh, well, with the first PlayStation VR headset, and I think we're gonna see it again, unfortunately, with the VR too. They do have some strong games coming out with the opening lineup, but eh, the fact still stands that yeah, it's a $600 headset, and right now there's a lot of people that just don't have $600 to spend, especially if they just bought a $500 console. You bring that $1,100 up, and all of a sudden they could have bought a really really inexpensive gaming PC and been playing more. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard ground to break, I think, and that's one of the big upsets that I think a lot of people are going to be seeing now.
Here, sorry, I forgot I had muted because I was coughing there too. Yeah,
You're good.
no, you're right. Is that I agree with all of that. That there's something about the idea that you're right, that you could go buy an affordable gaming PC that has support for a VR headset, or go buy something like the Quest 2. Even though that went up in price, maybe you're going to be roughly spending about the same as you would if you bought a PS5 and a PSVR 2. But you're also looking at the utility of it, though, as well, that you can play potentially more titles, not be locked into an ecosystem, and then have something like the Quest 2, or go, find a used like a Valve Index, or even a Vive Pro. Go find something used there
Mhm.
potentially if you're one to actually go through the used market, and be able to actually cover yourself in that regard. Be able to play all those
Well,
different titles and have a different experience instead of being locked into one ecosystem. Because can you imagine spending $600 and then finding out that, oh yeah, we're not going to do anything else with the PSVR 2. Now it's just becomes something that sits there and can only work for like 10 games on one system.
right, and that's the other thing. Yeah, they have the 30 games announced. How many of them are going to actually come out? Even if all 30 of them come out, how many of them are going to be actually quality games, or full length quality games for that matter? When yeah, you may have spent a little bit more or the same amount on a PC and a used headset or an Oculus, but every other month or every 3 months, on some online retail online retailer, excuse me, like Humble Bundle, or Fanatical, or Gamersgate, they have a bundle where you can get 6 VR games, 8 VR games for 25-30 dollars. And yeah, you might get two or three stinkers in them, but most of them are going to be really good VR games, and you're going to have fun with them.
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. And the other part too is that like the cross support for the VR headsets, especially like the my Quest 2, for example, I could play games through Steam VR, so I'm not isolated to just the single platform. Like I can play games wirelessly
Right.
on my headset, and I can go and do all the different things there, no problem. But for other things, sure, I have to plug a cable into my computer. Now I could play Half-Life Alyx without having a dedicated PC specific VR headset. I get the best of both worlds with it. Uh, that's just the thing. That's
I
where
don't
it
know.
really still makes me wonder, though. I know you're still kind of up in the air about which VR headset like you want, because
Mhm.
there's more that keeps on getting announced, and you're just like,
Oh yeah,
man, it's like
it's
the
always
screens in these, and
changing.
yeah. And the idea, though, that is like if Sony decides to limit the PlayStation VR 2 specifically to just being for the PlayStation 5, they are going to have a big problem with, I think, retention. or at least being able to actually sell the thing. Sure, you're going to have people go and pre-order it, but the article actually made a good point about the fact, though, that we are in the midst of this potential recession. Nobody's going to go spend $600 on a headset to do this, and you're going to have stock that sits there, is going to have to go on sale. Sony's going to lose money, so they're going to have to recoup it. Why don't they just try to recoup it by opening it up possibility, to the possibility of PC support? And then for the games they are releasing on PC, maybe they could drop the VR version of it on PC as well too. You may not get the full experience like you would expect to have on PlayStation 5, maybe because of some of those nuances, but the it's still there. That's still an option for them. So them cutting the production stuff, okay, I only slightly believe that they would, but my concern, though, is that they are limiting themselves, and it's going to cause pain points down the road, because I can't afford a $600 headset. So
Yeah, and I really hope they don't, go the same route that they've, like I said, went with the PSP, with the Vita, with the previous headset, and they do continue to support it, because they do have really quality, strong hardware from everything that's been shown. Especially with the room tracking and everything. I think it's probably some of the best I've seen out there thus far. But, they are going up against, all these other competitors that have well-established libraries, that have the accessibility to go on multiple different platforms or multiple different storefronts, or utilize even beyond the storefronts, online retailers to gain access to far less expensive games and a far vaster library.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. I think they do have to play it real close to the plate, but I don't want them to see, or I don't want to see them stop supporting it like they have everything else they put out, excluding their mainline console.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if they do end up deciding to slash, obviously we'll probably see how that goes, especially with availability. But at the same time, maybe we will see that happen though, where they over assumed that so many people are going to be buying it, and now we've got things going on discount relatively quick, and then maybe open PC support. But again, a wait and see approach here on this one too. So as we wait and see on that, we're going to move into our last mainline story for the week, and that is about 343 Industries. 343 Industries being the primary developer now for anything Halo. Turns out that they are probably going to be starting from scratch with Halo and potentially moving over to Unreal Engine instead of using their in-house tool. So Bloomberg has been on a roll reporting on a lot of this stuff. You could probably thank Jason Schreier for all that. But apparently sources for Bloomberg had claimed, and this is from this article from Engadget, claimed 343 is effectively restarting Halo development between multiple changes that include the loss of at least 95 jobs, including directors and key contractors. Notably, the studio is reportedly switching to Epic's Unreal Engine after both a leadership shuffle and struggling with its aging in-house platform. It's even breaking from its familiar story-driven gameplay, according to the tipsters. So the in-house engine and tool set is known as Slipspace. And I thought it was Slipstream, but I must have mixed that up with something else. Slipspace. And that tool set, I guess, has been evolved and adapted since the likes of Halo 4. And it's not to say that, Halo Infinite looks great. Don't get me wrong. But obviously something's got to give. And what I see here, especially like looking at, what Unreal can deliver on, like Kyle, what you and I talked about just previously with the Matrix demo. Yes, thank you. With what we can actually see out of that, plus all of the mainline support that Unreal Engine gets anyway, especially when it comes to their support for lighting, for ray tracing, for their particle textures, for really just about anything. I mean, you look at like engines in that, we think Unity for some things, but Unreal really is one of those top open engines out there that anybody can start using. And you can get it for free. Of course, if you're a studio like 343, you're going to have to pay. So if something's not working, obviously, it makes sense to kind of move into potentially other territory. But then in tandem with that, though, too, apparently there's been a game that's been getting worked on for a while anyway using Unreal already. And we've talked about it previously, Kyle, the Tatanka Halo game, the one that's supposedly supposed to be the Halo Battle Royale. Um,
Right.
but apparently they just haven't they just, it seems like that's the way they're going to go, but obviously we haven't heard anything about what Tatanka could be, whether that's just the code name for the Battle Royale or that's the code name for this all new refresh using Unreal 5. So what do you think about them, though, finally ditching internal tools and going with more of a commercial product?
Maybe it's something they should have looked at earlier on. I mean, it. Who knows? It could have avoided what was the brute's name,
Oh,
from early
Craig.
on. Yeah, maybe it could have avoided the whole Craig the Brute situation. But I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they played into it, which is still pretty funny, I think. Um, but really and truly, I mean, it is a dated engine. On the other hand, Bethesda's used the same engine for how long now?
Oh, that's
Um,
true. That's
but
true.
Unreal's a really strong engine. And the fact that they've been potentially toying with the idea of switching over to it for so long, I think the thing that really put them at fault is they should have either switched to it a while ago or honestly opened it up faster for people to play around in Forge to get more content out to be able to learn more about the game. So maybe they could have the support of amateur programmers, um, giving back to the game that they
Right.
love. But I think they're quite beyond that, unfortunately, now. And the fact that they are looking at Unreal 5, maybe it's a good step for them, honestly.
I think that's actually probably the case, though, too. Yeah, that they're looking at Unreal Engine 5 and that, yeah, you're right. I think they should have started on this sooner. And my guess is they probably did. They probably looked at it not necessarily at the onset of developing Infinite, but more like maybe
Hmm.
part of the way through that it's like, we're running into difficulties with this. Someone mock up something in Unreal Engine 5 and let's just see what comes across with it. And maybe that's where they started to realize that that's where some of those problems were at. And I think you're right, though, too, that Forge being delayed really prevented some of those key uh, fan supported maps from actually coming out because, we don't have the community maps being rotated yet. That I assume that's still coming down the line here at some point in time, too. But
I would like to hope.
yeah, but the idea, though, still that, you know, there were a lot of hangups, though, especially on Slipspace, that they still decided to keep using it. And it's not to say that Infinite looks bad in any way, shape, or form. It does look good.
Hmm.
Like I played the game on my 4K TV from start to finish for the campaign, and it looked just fine. It looks great for a Halo game. But obviously, some things have to give, and you can only do so much with aging tech before it becomes a problem, not necessarily just for your developers, but for your audience, especially with Forge, because Forge had to be built in Slipspace too. Um,
Right. And that's another
but
thing that kind of scares me about, them switching over to Unreal. I know the utilities and stuff are quite a bit easier to use than, a lot of other engines out there. However,
yeah,
how well does it translate from the Slipspace engine to Unreal, and, how quickly can they translate all the information that they've already put
well,
out currently to that new engine? Or, are we going to just see an entirely new version of the game come down the pipeline, in a year, and it's going to be some sort of Halo Infinite redux or something like that?
I don't. I get where you're going, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think Infinite's going to change engines completely like that. I don't think we're going to
Hmm.
see anything there. Maybe they work something into the launcher, perhaps, where maybe like something else gets included that runs in Unreal, but it's more of like how you have like your campaign, multiplayer, Forge options right there in the menu when you start up the game. But I don't
Hmm.
see it as being a full rewrite, rework of Infinite going into Unreal Engine. It looks like, based on what I'd seen, especially in like other articles out there about this, that it's going to be more of a redo of Halo in general. and whether or not they're going to continue with the story of Master Chief, whether they're going to pick up from Halo Infinite, whether they're going to do something brand new, like they're going to retcon the entire universe and start over with Halo 1. There's no indication exactly what that's going to be like, especially because we don't know any details about what this Tatanka build is supposed to be like anyway. But the fact, though, that, the fact that they've spent so much time trying to work through all the bugs and issues with Slipspace and to deliver, like they took forever to deliver mainline content, it's like something's going to have to give. And it's like, well, okay, we're going to just have to start over. Let's start with a blank slate. We know what we have. We know what we've built. What can we take from that to make in Unreal to be able to basically deliver the experience that people know and love? And, if Unreal was some brand new engine out there, I'd be a little bit concerned. But it's not. It's something that's been proven and has been developed on and has been refreshed and enhanced every single release. It's just going to be time to see exactly what comes of it. But I don't think we're going to see that in the next year. I guarantee, though, because it already seems like they've canceled, there's not going to be any single player DLC. We're not going to see any expansion or anything right now. There's not going to be anything. It looks like if there's anything multiplayer wise, it's going to be probably more just like generated maps and like community generated maps, or more like 343 generated maps using Forge. And then some other like limited time things though too. But for the actual evolution of the story itself as a whole, it's going to be several years down the line in the Unreal Engine, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see anything next year at all. I think we're just going to see constant standard content updates for Halo Infinite multiplayer, and that's really it.
Or, maybe there is a way for them to just use the Unreal Engine as a plugin and crutch off of it. So maybe the Unreal Engine can do the heavy lifting at with less effort than the Slipspace engine, and it ends up being a packet download, yes, but overall ends up benefiting the game overall just immediately. Who knows?
Yeah, no kidding. So that's it, though, on the mainline stories, though, for tonight. And that's where we take us into Kyle's section of the Weekly News Roundup to wrap things up. That is known as the Quest Markers. So, Kyle, what do we have in this week's Quest Markers?
So, for our first stop in the Quest Markers, Sony says 30% of PS5 players never played via PS4. It seems that Sony may be bringing in quite a few new players into their ecosystem with the PS5. In Sony's Q3 2020 presentation, they stated that, quote, nearly 30% of PS5 users, nearly 30% of PS5s are users who never used PS4. So with the spread of PS5, the acquisition of the new users is a progression, end quote. But is it really? When, according to VGC, the data was extrapolated based on Sony's definition of monthly active users as an estimate total number of unique accounts that played games or used services on PSN during the last month or quarter. So basically that necessarily means that it could just be new accounts or new accounts generated on a PS5 that someone already had accounts on. I know a lot of people that use secondary accounts, say in Overwatch or Call of Duty, just because they want to play with their friends and not affect their ranked play. So that could be a big part of it, Sony. Aside from that, given region-specific titles and other games within a single household, a single PS5 could have more than one account, which contributes to the statistics mentioned by Sony. So like I said, of course, aside from, single users having one account, who's to say all of a sudden the kids want to go online, or, the wife wants to make a user account to play I don't know, Call of Duty all of a sudden because she has a hankering to kill zombies or something on an older version. I don't know. Um, but at any rate, Sony does say that PlayStation 5 PlayStation 5 users are up 30%. In the next quest marker for the evening, PS5 beta system update adds support for Discord. Finally, Sony has shared details on its upcoming beta system update, including support for Discord voice chat. Per the PlayStation blog, you can now join Discord voice chats on your PS5 to indicate that you've shared access with PS5 console and easily chat with friends on most other gaming platforms. They go on to indicate that if you've shared access with Discord previously, specifically for sharing what game you're playing, you may need to reconnect to update your permission so you can join voice chat on the console. Also included in the update is support for variable refresh rate on the 1440p monitors, accessibility and ease of use feature, game capture via command, and more. Of course, you can check out PlayStation's blog for the larger breakdown. But one other thing that's rumored to have come down the pipeline is wireless controller updates. That if you didn't necessarily get it in this beta update, if you're a member of the beta access, it should actually be launching here shortly globally, I guess, for everyone within 4 weeks, something like that. So you should be able to actually update your controller wirelessly without having to plug it in any longer. And in our last quest marker for the evening, Redfall will require an online connection to play single player. In a recently published frequently asked questions on Bethesda's Redfall website, the devs have confirmed that single player will indeed require an online connection.
Boo.
Yeah, big boo. Simply put, will playing Redfall require an online connection for single player as well as co-op? A persistent online connection is required for single player and co-op. End quote. Nothing more to say, of course. Many players have become frustrated with games that require an online connection, even if they want to play a single player component of it, or may have limited internet access and can only play single player. This appears to be a requirement of playing any game that utilizes the ever unpopular Denuvo DRM software.
Double boo.
Denuvo, yeah, definitely. Redfall appears to be the latest one to join the list alongside Elden Ring, although it's alert and it'll alert and allow you to play offline regardless on Elden Ring. And Resident Evil Village, Need for Speed, and many others. Fortunately, as quite the prank, I want to say it was Wild Hearts recently came out and said that the game will launch 100% complete, will not require internet access, and will have the ability to play through the story single player 100%, as well as there won't be necessarily paid for just BS content like microtransactions essentially. So thanks
right.
Redfall for making yourself a big laughing stock, I guess.
I guess so, huh?
Yeah, because I mean, if Capcom and EA can have a laugh about it, that's pretty bad. When
kidding.
EA wants to put loot bags in Skate. So, but that is it for the quest markers for this evening.
And because that is it for the quest markers, that is it for the weekly news roundup for the week of February 3rd, 2023. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this week's news roundup. Of course, if you like what you're listening to, be sure to subscribe to us on our podcast platform. Of course, you can either use our podcast platform, which is at anchor.fm/the-NPCs-podcast, or use your favorite podcast platform of choice, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many others. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe there so any new episode that does drop does end up on your device right when it does become available. Of course, be sure to follow us here on YouTube and follow us, of course, on social media on Twitter and Facebook. Just search for the NPCs Podcast and you will find us. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this week's News Roundup. We will catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.